Thank you, Ceann Comhairle, and welcome the opportunity to speak on this particular piece of legislation. Minister, the legislation before us here is to use some of the surplus that we see coming in taxation to invest it in a long-term future. And, you know, this year we're looking at a surplus somewhere north of €8,000 million in our budget, and the intention is to spend 0.8% of our GDP being invested in this particular fund. And that's somewhere north of about €800 for every man, woman and child resident in this country. Now, I want to see this money invested domestically in our economy and not being used to serve the strategic interests of other countries rather than our own country. And one area where investment should take place is in the whole area of our offshore renewable sector. Ireland has a 220 million acre maritime resource off our coast. It has the potential to develop 70,000 megawatts of offshore renewable electricity. And this is enough capacity not only to meet Ireland's long-term needs, but also to meet the long-term needs of both France and Austria as well. It is a massive resource off our coast, but we need to tap into that. And the projections are by 2037 that the offshore wind development could be employing 5,400 people in the Atlantic region, with a financial dividend of €4.2 billion. But what we need to see is part of this surplus being set aside to support the critical electricity infrastructure that needs to be built off our coast to actually service these potential wind farms. And we also need to see significant investment in the upgrade of our ports. Presently, Ceann Comhairle, the only port in this country that can get involved in offshore renewable development is the Port of Belfast. Now, I've had the opportunity when I was in Stormont recently to meet with the senior management in Harland and Wolff, who are extremely anxious to develop beyond their existing footprint in Belfast, to look at other ports, Minister, in your own constituency in Killybegs, but in other locations around the country. And I believe we should now be engaging with Harland and Wolff, not just in terms of using their knowledge in the offshore renewable energy sector in terms of developing our other ports, but also in terms of providing apprenticeships for young people here to access the skills that are needed to service this infrastructure into the future. And it is imperative that we do build the capacity here, because presently we cannot simultaneously build multiple offshore wind farms from a single port on this island, and it's imperative that we do put that investment in place. I also believe that the most effective way for Ireland to take a leadership role in the offshore renewable energy sector is to establish an offshore renewable development authority similar to IDA Ireland, something that was adopted unanimously here by Dáil Éireann in December 2021, but government has failed to act upon that. This new authority could drive a fully coordinated national action plan, which would have responsibility ranging from research and development through to supply chain and commercial deployment of renewable energy, ensuring that Ireland becomes the global leader in clean energy and the export of that. And we have huge potential to export the renewable energy that we have off our coast. And this export is being led by an Irish indigenous company called Supernode, which wants to build a transmission network right across the European Union, bringing clean green energy from wind off the west coast of Ireland into the European grid, and bringing solar energy from the southern part of the European Union into the European grid as well. And we need to be working with a company like Supernode, putting Irish state investment into a project like that to ensure that it is successful and sustainable into the future, providing the market access that we need as a country here. Minister, before I finish, I want to raise two other issues. One which is directly within your remit, and that's the deficit that there is at the moment in terms of hydro-treated vegetable oil within the European Union. We have huge potential here in using rapeseed oil as a seed industry to actually fuel the processing of hydro-treated vegetable oil here in this country. Whitegate has already set up a facility to do that. There's the potential to increase capacity there. That requires investment. This fund should be involved in expanding the capacity in Whitegate to process and manufacture HVO, and we should be using this as an opportunity to generate a cash crop for Irish farmers, moving them away from livestock production to tillage production, helping to meet the targets that you're failing to achieve at the moment in terms of our tillage sector. And it's a win-win situation for our environment, for our farmers, and creating a sustainable fuel, indigenous fuel in this country, and that opportunity needs to be grasped now with both hands rather than sitting on our hands, which we have been doing to date. The final point, Minister, that I want to raise with you, and that is, we could talk about all of these projects all we like, but one of the single biggest barriers to the development of green energy, renewable energy projects, many other industrial projects in this country, is environmental regulations. And the difficulty is that environmental regulations in this country today are a black box. We have to wait for judicial interpretations on our legislation, whether it be EU legislation, whether it be national legislation or regulations. They are mired in uncertainty today. And what we've seen happen is, year on year, we have had regulations and directives coming from the European Union. We've had our own environmental legislation being introduced here. And what we need is a consolidation of all of our environmental laws in this country into a single piece of legislation. And I'm asking you, Minister, along with your colleagues, to direct the Law Reform Commission to go through each and every one of the environmental laws that we have in this country, to come forward with a comprehensive single piece of legislation that gets rid of the ambiguity that's there at the moment, which leaves it vulnerable and open, every single project, to judicial challenge. Let's take the judiciary out of this. Let's put it into legislation by having a single consolidated piece of environmental law in this country. Thank you, Ceann Comhairle.